come free with the duck and an eagle shooting the breeze. From paintball fields to campfire fun, you know the rowdy talk's just begun. Now kick up your feet and pour a glass. We're about to have a blast. We're the rowdy ones. We're the rowdy ones. The rowdy ones.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Rowdy Ones. We're super blessed and excited tonight. We have no one other than the man, the myth, the legend, the voice of paintball, Matty Marshall himself.
Yeah, and honestly, we could talk for days on end about our history, stories that we've shared, stories that, we have together or around the same time frame. But tonight, I think, people get to listen to your lovely voice, 36 to 48 hours, probably straight 5 times a year at least. And that's, notwithstanding all the podcasts you do. So I thank you for taking the time out to carve from your busy day to come on with us. And like I said, luckily, a lot of people know your history. Normally we get into, just random talks and stories that maybe people don't really have that much intimacy with. But with you, I kind of just want to talk about, change. There's a lot of change all around this year. This year is kind of the year of new beginnings. And it's even like that for you, in the booth. You're changing 50% of your team that's up there, that's online. And yes, you're going back with an old teammate in Todd Martinez, and it'll go smoothly. But those changes, persist throughout the sport we love. And they are all have very similar effects, and like you can get the most out of them in different ways. So I want to talk about the different change and what the league's trying to do and what teams are trying to do, and talk about current paintball with you tonight. But thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Sorry we can't go on for hours and hours. Just things are with the kids and stuff. Just dadding hard here in the off season.
For sure.
We got the new one. She's a handful. Anyway, but I'm thank you guys so much for having me on. Obviously, Ryan, we go way back, and you're right. We could spend hours going through all the times we've had together. And then Hal, man, it's been really nice to meet you recently. Still got your coin, bud. I was going to have this thing cherished right next to me here, so.
Thanks.
But yeah, I didn't really know exactly what rabbit hole we would be going down tonight, and always love having different conversations. But yeah, just jumping right into any questions or anywhere you want to go with this, because there is a lot. It's kind of drilling down on what we want to discuss. Tons of change. I don't know. What do you guys want to? Let's
start with all the teams, because I like your perspective on things, and I've listened to you on multiple other people's podcasts as well, talking about I liked your debate on which side was stronger or harder to play, the Doritos or the snake side. I would maybe like to talk about that a little, because I think all that stuff plays into it. We're going to limited paint this year. People have different ideas of how that will break down. And I like chatting with you about these things because, we can both be pretty strong-willed, but open to other ideas and perspectives on things. So I definitely, you watch more paintball than anyone. Maybe outside of San Monville, because I think he has to watch the points a few times when he's doing the paintball stats. But definitely more live paintball than anyone. Even all the coaches that say they're up there for every game, I see what they're doing. They're not fully focused for every game.
But before we get into it, it's kind of funny you bring that side up, because one of the things I got to do the staffing, right? I can get up there and win. It's kind of like herding cats because the schedule is always crazy. And so the coaches, sometimes I'll be trying to pull, even the players occasionally. It's more the guys that don't want to do it or don't do it on a normal basis, because it can be intimidating. You got camera on and we're live. It's live sports. It's kind of, we used to call the camera Medusa. Don't look at a Medusa. She'll turn you into stone. Stop talking. But one of the things that I will use is like a little bit of a carrot to dangle in front of them when they'll be like, "Oh, Matty, I would love to come up, but I got to scout this game and I got to watch the game." I'm like, "Bro, don't even start with me, dude. I see you guys bullshitting up in the stands when you're scouting the game. When you come up and you do the show, you are forced to be engaged, and you are breaking things down, and you are noticing tendencies. We are discussing them for the fans. And so don't even start with me about how you have to scout this game, bro. You can bring your notepad up and you can scout from up here, dude, because I'm going to do the lion's share of the talking. I just would like your expert insight into this, and we need to get your personality here. for the people. So yeah, I use it all the time.
You're 100% right about that. But I think it's more strange that players would ever be intimidated by the camera like that, because I mean, we're under camera scrutiny 24/7 when we're on the field, and I get that it might not be right in your face, but it's getting, looked at to a higher degree and really focused on. And, we're performing to keep our jobs. Like I've always said, like paintball is like a true meritocracy when it's done right. And any sport is like, we have to perform at all times or else we're always replaceable. So like to not be able to go out in front of a camera to talk about the thing that you do all the time and love doing, it's strange to me. But I did realize like the older you get, the easier it gets, or you do something, the easier it gets. When I went back and finished my degrees, watching 19-year-old kids give presentations versus the people that were my age was night and day difference. And it's just the nerves of something not normal to your routine.
Well, they do those polls, and even more than death, the biggest, most common fear of a human being is public speaking. And they've tied that to something where it has to do with you don't want to be embarrassed in front of the tribe or be made to look a fool. It's like the famous quote, better to be thought a fool than to do otherwise and relinquish all doubt. And so I think it's more of a subconscious thing. But I get it, man. I mean, to be honest, I was never the kid that was like, hey, I was always the last to speak in class and never volunteered for any sort of public speaking stuff. And, obviously that's a different rabbit hole, but so I can empathize with their anxiety of being in front of a camera, because I share that origin as well too. This wasn't something I kind of chose. It almost kind of chose me in a way. But yeah, so yeah, lots of change. So where do you want to start?
Let's start with the teams. Like what teams do you think got better? What teams you think got worse? And I'd like to just kind of break them down with you and get your feel at these things.
Well, I think that, better and worse. I think let's kind of look at teams.
I'll preface it by saying, like, I know you said like this year you were on the side that it wasn't as crazy as an off season.
Well, in the sense that, if we go back, we had a year where it went from the PSP to the NXL. We had an expansion year where we brought 4 new teams in.
We've definitely seen it, go from format changes to league changes. In the NXL.
If we want to throw caveat in, even in the NXL, it's like, okay, we added the expansion here. That was in the NXL, so it just kind of depends.
4 teams.
And yeah, but 4 teams is 40 dudes, 4 whole, that's like, that changes kind of a lot, and that's like bringing in 4 new grand stories. And also this year, there hasn't been a ton of change at the top. I'm not, look at it. The changes are in a way, I think it's kind of like I don't want to say it's like a low IQ argument to be, who cares if it's the craziest ever? There's enough meat on the bones here that there's enough change that, to me, I can't wait to get to Tampa and see what the hell happens here with all these changes and see, like you said, who got better and who got worse. I think that's also one instance. One tournament is not necessarily going to answer that question. It will give us our initial burst of information that we can kind of go off of from there. But we didn't really have like a ton of change at the top. If you look at, I'm going down the list, like PB Fit, right? PB Fit's, that's going to be a tough nut to crack as far as poaching players is concerned, probably as long as they continue to be as dominant as they have been since World Cup.
I think it's funny that people talk about like, Paintball Fit showed the way to do things now, the successful way to do it. But, that's always the way it was successful. That's how all these teams started out. All the best players that are still around 2 decades into the pro career. The difference is life situations do change things, right? So they're lucky enough to have brands that go along with their team. So they all have jobs through that and are able to make a living and not be missing, right? But once you start having families and you need to make enough money, it's not that you care less about it, but you might not have that same amount of, uniquely serious players in your area, serious people that put the same effort in that you do. And it's those, when you start losing that, now these players have to, get formed, have a paintball patron to put it together and get formed from all regions of the country. But yes, more time together does obviously has always benefited things, but more than anything, it truncates the learning curve. It exponentially increases your experience, and it gets you to that level of know-how instead of trying to prove yourself sooner. So they did everything right. They got the confidence, and confidence goes a long way in this sport. I am curious to see how long they will continue to all have that same amount of drive and willpower to put in, and write this on your bulletin board. It's not a mark on them. It's saying that is life. That's how I've seen all the teams I've ever been a part of drift away or lose momentum, go from world championship caliber to having off years. And it's how you rebound from that and how you rebuild from that, because very rarely do you see that stay the same across those times.
Yeah, and again, it's not really a lot to talk about with it other than they're the number one team and they didn't make any changes, and they could be even better than we've seen them in the past, because as you said, confidence is key, not only in life, especially in paintball. But it is tough if they hit a rough patch, that's when things can the wheels start falling off. And not all of them, a lot of those guys some of them work for Fit, as like the company in the field. And a lot of them have, some of them have jobs that are close, remote work, and it allows them to devote that time. Like Ryan said, with children coming into the mix eventually, whatever, you only have a certain amount of time in the day, dude, and so many days in the year, so many days in the week. And I'm trying to explain this to my 5-year-old. I'm like, hey man, I don't control how much time we have in the day. Okay. And a lot of times I don't really get to control how much stuff we have to do. You have to go to school. You have to go to this point. We have to do this thing, so I need you to understand that is part of our lives, so that you are being a little bit more proactive and being helpful and trying to get us to be able to do these things. Most of them are for you anyway. So with Fit, but you look at the top, right? So it's like, okay, Fit, Legion, like the top 5, Fit, Legion, X Factor, Impact, and Damage. And I expect those top 5 to still be near or at the top. Everyone's going to be threatening to win events in the top 5. Not a ton of change there. See if Archie's going to retire still. It's going to be a tournament by tournament with Archie. And then, hey, like Archie's earned that, right? He's one of the GOATs. So if Archie wants to dip in and play 2 events next year, they'll have him. And they should.
I don't worry about Archie in those situations, but I always worry about the team atmosphere in situations where people are in and out, because regardless if that person comes in and performs, if other people start, getting upset about losing playing time to someone who's not putting in the same amount of effort and drive that they are, that can have long-term effects. So I don't worry about Archie ever coming in and playing, but it's a weird team dynamic when those situations happen.
No, I totally agree with you. And that is a very accurate assessment of the situation from a psychological standpoint that the team leaders and, everyone on the team needs to understand. However, if that ever came up, I would point to the fact that this is, thank God, a merit-based situation. This is a brotherhood of merit. Okay. So if Archie comes in and he's not getting it done, well, then that's going to create more problems. But he comes in and he's smoking people, then, what are we trying to do out here? Trying to win paintball tournaments. We used to joke back in the day. It's like, hey man, if you're not making practices, but you're making enough to at least play the tournament, and then you show up at the tournament and shooting 2 bodies a point, you're going to start. And because that's what we're here to do. This isn't a club. We're running a professional paintball team, and we're out here to crush the other team's dreams, to take prizes, and to make people remember our names. And so if you're helping us do that, cool. If you're a hindrance to that, cool. Are you the best example if I have to pull your ass off the couch hungover to get you to practice? No, you're not. But if you're showing up at practice, crushing it, well, what are we trying to do here? So
no, in your terms, that's easy to say, but that's when it's clearly evident. Where it gets to be a trouble is where it's the borderline. They're in the gray area of still being that same player or not.
Yeah, no, that's
true. Still adding to the situation, but like, is it 2 good points and a bad point? Is it more 50-50? And that's where the doubt starts creeping in. If someone just comes off the bench and crushes it, people don't have an argument, because if they do, they're being babies about it. But it's not on the edges where you have the issues. It's all the stuff in the middle.
But that's true. But I would even, sorry, Hal, go for it.
No, go.
No, I just real quick. I would, you're right. That is an unrealistic expectation. No one really kind of comes out and does that. Very few people do. They're typically making good money or decent money to play paintball. right now. Those are those guys, right? So that's how they made their way to get to that position. But once you get to the tippy top, it's really more about, and I coach divisional teams now, or a divisional team now, because I'm got a lot of stuff going on. But when I talk to these up and coming divisional players, I tell them, because they're in their minds and their expectations for themselves. You have to manage expectations both as an individual and as a leader. And I will tell them, look, I don't expect perfection, but I expect you to be better than our opponents. And we are never going to win every single point. We're never going to win every single gunfight. Right. What I need is, and so I want you to look at this war of attrition, this battle over the period of a tournament and of the period of a year, a season, is that ideally, it's like a call and response thing I have with the teams I coach. I'll be like, hey, boys, how many points do we need to win? When we're having an issue with guys either being, a little too tentative, not committing, or, whatever it may be. And whatever the instance may come up where we got to discuss this, I'm like, hey, how many points do we need to win? And the correct response to that. So the call is that. The response is more than half. That's it, dude. That's all we need to win. We don't have to win every single point. We don't have to win every single gunfight. But you got to win more than half, and you got to win more than half of your gunfights as well, too. So I would even then kind of tear it down, and make it less hyperbolic and exaggerated.
You could lose more than half your gunfights as long as you're killing people other ways.
That's true. As long as you're making the nice move, you could be losing half your actual gunfights, but you're smart enough in making the moves and getting the free kills. Then I hope you've been doing your. We've been doing your
kill people in the sides, when they're not looking.
Totally, but I hope you've been doing your drills then, because like this past weekend, because it's the beginning of the season, I'm on people's ass about, hey, dude. I mean, you made it to their side of the snake, and then you missed that dude with 20 balls, and then you missed the back corner with 20 balls. I mean, and then you won. Yeah, it's sure. Yeah, it's the paint. I mean, 20 though, like I can see 5, it could be the paint, but 20, like a whole 2 second long burst, you missed all of those. No, you need to bounce them. Anyway, and I think that to kind of make things a little succinct, because we got to cover a lot of space in the next 40 minutes, but. Is that kind of goes for all the vets. It's like, what does a team need? We talk about it all the time. It's cliche. It's cliche for a reason. Threats and vets, right? So the vets are the guys that bring the experience. They've won tournaments before. They've been there and done that. They're calm in the chaos. They're hard to get rattled. And they're the guys that, even though they're the elder statesmen and maybe they don't have the reflexes of the young threats that are coming up, they're probably winning more than half the gunfights when we're at practice, because they just know when to engage and when not to engage. They've mastered gunfight logic. And so in these situations, that's kind of all the vets kind of need to maintain that level, because this is a keep what you kill environment, and your respect is constantly clocked in every year by your performance. Not just necessarily the gravity of your name and your previous accomplishments, because in a realistic way, that all gets wiped out every single time we go to a tournament. You get to keep all that for your legacy, but as far as the repercussions in the actual physical reality of that immediate moment, that shit's just a story. It's what's happening right then. So I think as we talk about, the complications and the changes in some of these teams, I think that's kind of a big potent part of the discussion. And so the top 5, to me, I feel very confident that I really highly doubt. Now we may see, look at Damage last year, right? So, Damage, they win World Cup, and people, it's, but they took a 6th, they took an 11th, they took an 8th, they took a 7th, and then they won the most important tournament, right? What a hell of a year. I'll take that year. And Ryan, we've talked about this too, dude.
Yeah.
They may miss one Sunday and win World Cup, but I'll take that year every single year I play, if possible. That would be amazing.
Regardless of all that, and regardless of the places they were finishing, they had all the talent and a group of players that have already won together, and more talent on top of that. So all they really had to do is put it together. I don't think it surprised anyone when they won World Cup. It more surprised people, when they were missing a cut, when they were getting a 7, things like that. And it's hard, because I agree with you when I look at the top 5 teams, and then I could also look at 4 of the next 6 teams and be like, well, I feel the same way about them. Well,
I was just
nine teams can't be in the top 4.
Yeah.
You look at a team like Dynasty, last year finished in 9th or 10th or whatever they finished in. They're going to be significantly better this year. They're already good. They just had an off year. You're losing games to good teams by 1 point on Sundays. It's not like you're you're past your prime, and they added a lot of talent. I think our rebuilt Heat team is interestingly built, and I'd like to talk with you about some about that too, because before I decided to go back to Heat, like I wasn't sure where I was going to go, so I took deeper looks into all these possibilities of where I might end up, and the pluses and minuses about them all. And there's a lot of talent in this league right now, and that's why I was getting to. I really do think this year has been pretty crazy because of the amount of changes. You're right, maybe not in the top 5, but with tournaments, difference makers, people that could be in that top 5 at any time. Teams were changing half the roster, changing names, merging with other people. There's just been more big changes to big teams than I have ever seen. And in that aspect, it's exciting to me because this whole year is an unknown. Like, I think right now, everyone's going in with extremely high expectations. And, at the end of Tampa, it's only going to be, one team truly happy with their results and maybe 4 other 5 who over exceed their expectations. But everyone else is going to be disappointed. I mean, I'm going into this year thinking that, we can be the best team and that we will be the best team if we put in the effort that we need to with the pieces that we have and the way that we're built. And I know that every other team's doing that. So I think this time of the year is always exciting because it's full of unknowns, and this year more than others, because you can't really look at trend lines because everyone's had big enough shakeups in that mid high tier that those can go either way. I've always said, the best player in the world could make a team worse. The worst player could make a whole team better. So these team dynamics have now shifted, and that really could open up enough, wiggle room to build so much confidence in one of these teams that they become the new fit.
Absolutely. The couple things there, just a little pushback. One, I would say that
pushback's good.
No, it's just I mean, I don't know, we're here. People are listening to this. They are expecting to be entertained and enlightened with some knowledge in some way, shape, or form. So let's try to give them that, right?
Love it.
I would say, like Ryan, you've had a pretty like Heat's been so good for so long. I mean, we always, even when you guys obviously have won a lot historically since the inception of the team. But also, when you weren't winning, you were still the team that was making a ton of Sundays, right? So this year, particularly for you, was a year where now Heat's having a little bit more up and down, punching into the top 3, but also missing a couple Sundays, a 5th, and then at the end of the year, now a change in ownership. So for you personally, maybe even subconsciously or consciously, it's going to seem like a drastic amount of change, because for the first time in a long time for you, you're like, oh shit, what am I going to do? Because you've been like, oh dude, I'm one of the stars on Heat, former World Cup MVP. We always got a chance to win. Like that's about as a stable as there was changes on Heat and, the minutiae and the slight variables that would change here and there, but the core was always pretty much the same. Yeah, you bring coaches in and out. So, there was change that was happening, but the results always were pretty damn good, man. You guys were, winning tournaments. It's been a little bit since you guys won one now, but still making tons of Sundays, always in the hunt, losing to a team that won the tournament. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh shit. Now, like, this is like legit change. Like, am I even going to play for Heat next year? What am I going to do here? Okay, cool. I am going to play for Heat. We're bringing on new dudes. We got a new owner. We got a new coach. Like, that's a lot of change for you personally. Well, and then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll give a little pushback to that pushback before we get too far into your pushback.
Let's get all the pushback, dude. Normally, hey, people are getting a look at Ryan and Matty and what we do at post event here.
Or when you came and stayed at our Philly American Team House, we would.
It was
do this,
so great.
Till
it
6
was so great. Yeah, we were doing it till 6 a.m. after drinking. What were those Flaming Dr. What was the hell was that?
Flaming Dr. Peppers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they we had some good times.
That was my drink of choice.
That's for another time.
Yeah.
No. So my pushback is I normally would agree with you on that. And we have been getting progressively worse in the last 4 years. But I look back and like that 4 years seems awful to me. Like, because I think we hugely underperformed. But I look back in the last 4 years, we were 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then last year 7th in the overall rankings. So last year was the first time in, a long, long time that we weren't a top 4 team. And I'll say going into last year, I didn't really know 100% I was going to be on Heat, because we ended that year after picking up Connor and Tyler and having our full roster and having a roster that should be winning, we ended up, performing poorly at a World Cup. And then, Sarge and Ryan go on a hunting trip. Moves started happening very quick that off season. And, Tyler left, Connor left, and I don't even know what Sarge's mindset on it is. So in my mind, I had already explored the potential of, maybe I'm not finishing my career on Heat, right? So I entertained that. But going into last year, like 7th is super disappointing for me. We definitely underperformed. We can't be missing Sundays, but we did change 33% of our roster with people that, had finished 17th in their one pro year. I will say they all performed great on our team, and I thought we built chemistry very fast. But that's a big turnover on any professional league. If you're changing 1/3 of your people and starters at every tournament, and when we picked up Andy, 4 out of the 9 guys we had are now new guys. So we did get 7th, and it's disappointing. But really, in a rebuild year, I don't think that's as bad with the roster we had as it could have been. So I was, very disappointed going into this year, thinking that that's how it ended. And that's, did make my decision harder and easier in some senses to come back.
No, I mean, brother, I'm not saying you guys even should have done better on paper, considering how good you guys actually did at, again, a 3rd place and how the league's been, bro. Anyone that's cracking the top 4, I'm going to tip my hat in respect, and I don't care what the name of the team is, especially with, bringing in some guys that are getting some playing time. You need to rely on those dudes. So, yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it was again, if things had stayed the same and you guys kept that roster together, I'd feel it was a positive year to build on. It is a big ask, even though I do the teams that I coach, and I've had this conversation with people too. Like, paintball is one of those places that it is realistic to have unrealistic expectations with your results, as long as you're willing to put the right type of effort in. If your right intention, the right belief, and the right camaraderie, teamwork, all that stuff comes together, combined with the right effort and the right support, then guys can really catapult up the ranks. That's how all the top teams became the top teams. And I think look at Heat's first year. I mean, it's, again, you can have unrealistic. It is realistic to have unrealistic expectations in the sport of pro paintball, given all of those elements. If those elements are there, then you can, which kind of lends credence to, the possibilities that we could see, the top 5 get cracked. But that was the other part of the pushback I was going to push in a second. But, I think that, yeah, man, I mean, I'd
like to add something a little onto that. I completely agree with that. But I think something that's often overlooked there is you have to be very aware of why things didn't work out too. Because sometimes things don't work out and you did everything right. So you don't want to change anything in that. And sometimes things didn't work out because you didn't do something or, work on something hard enough. So you have to understand, when you're still making positive progression, even when it didn't work out, and maintain that, as opposed to diametrically changing it all the time. Because failure doesn't necessarily mean a failure in process. It's just a failure in the results.
Yeah, it's also kind of trying to focus more on this is another coaching cliche or a cliche in business. You can't really focus too much on results. You need to focus on the process. But I also don't completely agree with that, because I feel like the result is the test. I don't even call tournaments with teams I work with or guys I mentor, I call them a test. Because when you go to the tournament, you are tested. Everything that your mindset, whatever mental edge you have, define that however you would like, combined with the effort and preparation you've put in, you then are weighed and measured and you get tested. And then after the test, you have to have a no bullshit assessment on how you did. So the result is definitely part of the equation. So I feel that you have to, at least in that instance, or that, to complicate it a little bit, you do have to be focused a bit on the result, because the result then it's a feedback mechanism. It feeds back into the process. But I think that, the
results kind of stand the test of time for sure. But
they definitely stand the test of time, because when it looks back, no one knows what your fucking process was, bro. Exactly. When we go back and when I look back at 2016 and see who won a tournament, it doesn't tell me about, I may remember what the process was, but it just says who won and who took second and who took third and that all and down there.
That's what I mean. And that's what I mean, because I've definitely gotten seconds because, a bad call or a bounce in the last point.
Yeah.
And I've gotten first because of a good call or a break. So I'm just saying, like, those results are like, you know, the first will stand the test of time. I would look back in the second, but those were a lot closer than what the results showed, is all I'm saying. So you have to understand when the seconds because you didn't do something well enough or when it just didn't work out.
No, again, that's where nuance comes into the conversation. That's one of my favorite words, because if you can't wrap your head around the complications and things and the nuance, you know, again, there's the details are not the same. You know, there's a lot of intricacy that is involved in all of this. And if you can't wrap your head around this, it's never probably going to happen for you. You're never going to win. You have to have a really brash and meat hook reality look at things in order to pull the information you need out of every single one of a practice, a tournament, how the team is working together, all these different things, your equipment, logistics, all that shit, man. You have to really be looking at all that stuff, or you're really not putting your best foot forward in order to get the results that you want. So, but when I look at this list, the one other thing I would say is that as much as, because I agree with you. If you look at, we go through now, if we go past 5 and go into 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, we got Tauntauns, Heat, Uprising, Dynasty, Hurricanes. Man, okay, we got some really cool talk about some change. Now we got a lot of change. Okay, but the one thing I would say here, and this again, just kind of push back more for conversation's sake, but is that those teams somehow have to get through all the top teams that didn't change much. You know, so it's like they still got to go beat those teams in order to crack into that top 5 and win tournaments this year. Because at some point in time on Sunday,
you always have to, though. Anytime.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course you have. But still, we got to talk about it, right? So it's like, and you have teams that haven't changed much. You know, so Impact is, they got a little bit of change there. X
my
Factor
argument then would be like Tauntauns, right? They got second twice last year, top 4 multiple times. So they're not a top 5 team in your list, but they performed at an over top 5 pace for the majority of the year.
Well, they're at 6 currently, and that was kind of I saw some pushback on people. We might be able to talk about this a little bit, but you know, there's some pushback it looked like online as far as because the draw came out, and so some people were like, "Well, why in the hell why are the Tauntauns still at 6th?"
I agree, actually, even though I think it's better for the sport to have the better teams that rank that at the beginning. You know, based on precedence and the actual like format of, you know, ranking teams and selling, you know, spots and who you're playing under. I think that matters more than the actual players on the roster. So I don't love that they did that, even though I think that they deserve to be there.
Yeah, I mean, again, if I put on my hashtag Grow Paintball hat, I mean, is it more entertaining? It goes either way, right? Because it for a purity standpoint, the Tauntauns are pretty much the same squad. They lose Fedorov, they have the same coach, you know. And if you look at last year, okay, so it's Tauntauns, FSU, Marky Franz. So now we're switching Benny Carroll with Marky Franz, but FSU is essentially their sponsor, paying for the best European team ever to play and come over to see what they could do. 2 second places. 6th place overall. And so it's like, do I feel they earned the right to be in that 6th? Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, for sure. We, again, take Fedorov out, put Benny Carroll in. We could discuss for, you know, some time on that change, but they have the same leadership, you know, same, their Pascal's still their coach. So, and when I talked to Jason about this, I say, hey, talk me through how this worked out and where everyone's seated. And that was what he said. He's like, it's the Tauntauns, dude. He's like, the Tauntauns took 6th overall last year. It was the Tauntauns FSU. That's their sponsor. If Dynasty now is Dynasty Nike, okay, Nike comes in and sponsors Dynasty. Am I bumping them down to the 5th tier because they changed their sponsor and picked up a dude? You know, it's like, it's still Dynasty if it's the core 4 guys. He's like, so they're still the Tauntauns and they earned 6th last year, so they're 6th. He's
my
like,
devil's advocate argument for that, which I agree, purity wise, that's right. Yeah. But if I was Hinman, which Hinman's not going to complain about this, but if I was him, I would argue that, you know, when I bought that franchise, that spot, that ranking, I'm buying into that as well, you know, and that comes with a unique thing at this first event. It comes with, you know, playing inside the stadium. And I don't think it's fair to a team owner who's actually spending the money and doing it, even though it's right for the on the field product. So like, I do struggle both ways with this.
No, again, what are we? This is a talk show, baby. We're trying to fill the air and put asses in seats. Hey, paintball is interesting. If you just caught this randomly and you're listening to this and you're still here with us, there's a lot of crazy shit that happens in paintball. So it's fun to watch. Trust me, as somebody that hasn't played professionally in 2 decades, well, not quite, but getting there. It's just fun. I just enjoy it. I enjoy all this chaos. It's really fun. And the game itself is really fun to watch too, because it's war with no death and there's nothing else like it. But anyway, I asked that question to Jason as well too, and he said, "Yeah, dude, when you buy that's why it says in the rules when you rebrand completely, so not just Tauntauns adding Arsenal at the end, then that's when you go to tier 5. When a team comes in like Collision and buys a spot, so it's different name, complete rebrand, different players, there's no carryover at all, everything's different. That's when you drop down to tier 5. You're a semi-pro team that's coming in because there's no other pro league in the world where a team's going to buy in and deserves to be like grandfathered into some top level spot, so like that doesn't exist. This is the best in the world. So in that situation, when you rebrand, you come in and that's when you get dropped down. For a situation like the Tauntauns, that's not their situation. They're not rebranding. Sure, you could make an argument from semantics or by the letter of the law instead of the intent of the law that it is a rebrand and they need to get brought down because it's a different ownership and AKA different sponsorship. I mean, a lot of times that's kind of the same thing sometimes. And so in that situation, then that would mean they get dropped down. Now, I would be pissed if I ended up, if the Tauntauns did get dropped down to tier 5 and I'm in their bracket in tier 4 and I got the Tauntauns in tier 5, because when we talk about brackets of death, that's what makes the bracket of death. It's not necessarily who's at the top 1 or 2 spots. It's who's our 5th team in the bracket, who's down in tier 5. Because if I look at tier 5 and I get a team that's been underperforming on paper all year long, and all of a sudden they've had, 1, 2, 3 bad results, but I'm looking at the talent and looking at all the different, I'm looking at the equation and I'm like, man, 2 and 2 is 6. For some reason, it's been 2. I don't know why. This is weird. That's not a team that I want to have in bracket 5. So, it's anyway. But yeah, it is interesting though, and it definitely makes for some interesting conversation. But I think, again, it's essentially the same squad without Fedorov, and he was amazing last year. And you played with Fedorov for years. You know what a force multiplier he can be when he's on. And so that to me is now the question with the Hurricanes is that how is Tauntaun vibed well with Fedorov vibed well with the Tauntauns? Are we going to see the same type of performance out of Fedorov? Probably, that we did in 2025 and 2026 with the Hurricanes, because then that makes the Hurricanes more relevant because that core is awesome. I like the core. I feel like
I'm curious too because
No, just real quick, because because people are like, because I'll get this too. Guys that have been in the league for like 3 years that are definitely respected will come up to be like, "Oh, Matty, I feel like I'm underrated," and I'm like, "Who is underrating you, bro? The dude that doesn't watch paintball? Definitely not your peers, because when I talk to your peers, they're like, we got to put a gun on that guy." So it's just, anything that gets you that mental edge to get you pumped up for your gunfight. But when you look at the Hurricanes, I do think that the core of that team, just based on what they did last year, the Hurricanes last year, they took a top 4, made 2 Sundays, and missed a couple Sundays on the edge with 12th place, changing the leadership. No Mike Bianca, but just individually, I look at that talent, and I think that with that result, a couple Sundays, but I think the core of that team is a little bit underrated. So adding Fedorov and some pop there with now a lot more financial support, I think that's a team that we could see go up the ranks a little bit here. And we were talking about all this different change. I think Uprising is not to jump around.
Touch on the Hurricanes real quick, because I'm curious about that too, because I thought Fedorov, had one of the best years of his career last year. And I honestly thought, after we parted ways, him and he parted ways, like I honestly thought he would have a great year, because, you have a lot to prove and he still had a lot to give. Like he's a phenomenal athlete. He's a great player. I am curious to see how it goes with the Hurricanes, because I think he's going to be put into a more leadership role, where he was put into a unique situation with the Tauntauns where English is all their second languages, and they already had a formed group, and Pascal's a pretty organized coach and probably held it down a lot. So I'm curious to see Fedorov going from just a soldier who got out to do everything to, I think he has to be a leader on the Hurricanes, and I'm curious to see how those playing styles mesh up. because I think the way the Hurricanes, set out to play last year and the way Fedorov played last year isn't exactly like fitting a puzzle piece into a puzzle piece into a puzzle. You're muted.
Nope.
He's working on it. Shows that you're muted.
I think. Yeah. You're muted, Matty.
Yeah, he's working on it. What do you think, Hal?
I think it'll be interesting coming from my previous backgrounds. I think it'll be a bend or break moment. I think it will be the uprising or the downfall of it, depending on how it goes, how it's followed, and how everyone receives that message. That he's going to try and
Matty. Sometimes that does it, but
yeah, you might have hit the button. Let me see if I can unmute him. Let's see if I can force unmute Matty.
I doubt it.
I can't. I tried. A for effort. See, I gotta.
And my mute button, your mute button's not lit up on the bottom?
No.
No, I was talking about his screen. Because when you click it in the toolbar at the bottom, it does.
Yeah, but he's muted, so I don't have a sound power.
No, I was talking about it for him, man.
Unmute. I can't unmute him. It gave me an option to.
Yeah, well, finish your thought.
Yeah, no. So I think with Fedorov, if everyone can get.
Hey, Matty, why don't you just hop off and then join the invitation again, and we'll get it back on and talk for a few minutes.
Yeah, the same invite will bring you back in. But as far as that goes, I think, it could be the rise or the downfall. How do you
I don't think it's going to be the downfall because
no. But I'm just saying it's going to be like a drastic. Here we go. We got him back. We got the big dog back. Matty, what do you think of that?
Sorry, boys. Am I back? Can you guys
hear we hear me? You loud and clear, baby. Let's get it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Sorry. Apologies. Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened. But yeah. Anyway, so not to miss any time here because I have about maybe 15 minutes left.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as the Hurricanes are going to be legit.
Yeah.
I just don't know how when we have these, when we say things like they're going to be legit, they're going to be good. Oh, they look like it's okay. Can we win tournaments? Because they've never won a tournament before, so that's kind of, again, the actual question here when we're, really dialing in on what is required out here to be elite, to be remembered, to go into the books. I think that the core of that team, with more support they have, and Fedorov as, again, threats and vets, right? He's both a threat and a vet. And a lot of Ryan,
my favorite
with
players, threats and vets combined.
Threats and vets combined.
You don't have to not be able to do.
They're a vet. They're a vet threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and honestly, that's how you get to be a vet anyway. You don't stick around this long if you're not constantly a threat. It's more, when we talk about threats and vets, it's more of like, who's playing the one in the snake for you? Who's playing the one on the D side? They typically aren't always, Ryan. No shade your way. They're typically not the vet. But sometimes they are.
That's not shade. Like I said, I'm going into my 23rd, 24th year pro. Like, I haven't even moved back to the 2 yet, so I got a few more decades in me.
That's right.
Maybe you'll set the Ryan. Maybe, I don't know how your knees still work because you never wear knee pads.
Fantastically.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't even have any. Like, look at me, bro. Like, you still have your hair. I'm bald and gray, and you're definitely younger than I am. But like, you've got the genes, dog. Keep doing it as long as you possibly can. So yeah, I think the Hurricanes are going to be really fun to watch this year. Uprising has been very impressive. Even losing, they've kind of had to play a tiny bit of roster roulette as far as putting guys in certain key spots. Again, those threat spots. Who's playing the one on the D side? Who's playing the one on the snake side? And they've done that really well. Really like what we've been seeing out of Uprising. Again, we're just dealing with those top 10 teams.
Love those
and Ryan,
guys, as competitors, like I really do love those guys and excited when they do well.
Yeah, and then you guys sitting at 7th. I'm excited to see you guys this year. You know, I mean, I always obviously have a soft spot in my heart for people I've known for a long time, and I've seen their entire careers, like yourself, and Ronnie and some of the core guys on that team. But there's been a decent amount of change here, and I think that the combo, because you know, if you look at what Allen and some of those guys are bringing in, they had a lot of close losses last year. Yeah, sure, they get relegated, but that was a team that was not getting blown
They had
out
like
of the water.
8 overtime losses
Yeah,
in a row.
in a row.
Yeah,
that's insane, dude. Like,
yeah. Statistically improbable at the very least.
Yeah.
I would not have bet on that.
No.
So I think that's going to be, you guys are going to be a really fun team to watch this year. And then once we crack out of, and then Dynasty.
I guess we'll talk about us a little longer, because what I'm excited about this year for us is the way our roster was constructed.
You tell me.
I think we have an incredible amount of versatility now. And I think that goes a long way when you're trying to run a shorter roster. You know, we're going into the year with 8 players. That's where we're going to stay. We have a nice mix of youth and vet threats, you know, because I'm still going to be playing the 1 a lot. You know, Velez is still a 1. Ronnie's still a 1. We have a lot of players with a lot of experience. Mishkas can still be a 1 at any given day. So I think I'm excited, you know, just me, Mishka, and Ronnie coming back puts like our Heat experience at over 60 some years, you know, of just time on Heat. So it does still feel like Heat to me, you know, because I still have a core of players and still playing under that name and banner and still trying to, you know, play for the same fans that do it. But I think our versatility is what excites me, because we have everyone willing to sacrifice anything for the person next to them, you know, be a little worse to make someone else a little better. And everyone wants to learn and grow. And I don't think we have any, you know, negative mindsets on the team. And I think that goes a long way. If you know how to build each other up, and you know how to get the most out of each other, and you know how to ask people the right questions and give the right answers that they're looking for as an individual, then success can come a lot faster. And that's just talking about, you know, the players I have, you know, innate awareness about, you know, the Ronnies, the Mishkas, even playing with Andy for a year. You know, he was first time he ever played pro was last year. He's a post-COVID paintball baby, but he's just a sponge. He wants to learn. He wants to listen. He doesn't argue, and he just wants to get better. Right. Chewy's older, Louis Betancourt, but he's the same way. You know, the amount of questions he asked at our first practice together about how to play aggressively, and my mindset of things, like that excites me to play with a person who wants to learn, who wants to get better, who wants to push the envelope, who's not happy doing something, who wants to, you know, change the way it's done, because we can dictate that. Right. And then you have a player like Austin, who I always watched him. And if I'm being honest, I think players like that can be a dime a dozen. Like, people are always like, oh, their survivability is good. You know, they're alive. And when I watch that on bad teams, I think it's easy to be alive in the back if you're not like doing a lot to affect the game. But I think after playing with him, like, his communication is top notch. He fits in so easy and knows not to clog the airwaves, but to connect the two sides, knows the important information and the order to share it, does little things like, you know, Austin's this way, talking about himself in third person, you know, like all those things help. Right. And that made it a lot easier. And now, you know, just after one weekend playing with him, he still had great survivability, but he's doing it from more upfront positions, because you can do that when you have faith in the people around you a little more. Right. And you don't expect failure out of that. So it's like everywhere I look, I see a lot of excitement. And that's without mentioning players like Cody, who are still incredibly hungry for an X-Ball win. You know, we have a lot of people that can play a lot of spots, but also our survivability is really well in pretty much any of them. So I think as a coach, and like Chris Jansen is, you know, so in love with paintball and still so dedicated to, when your coach puts in as much effort as you, or more effort than you, that just excites you more, right? Yeah. The way we talk about him, like having conversations with him and Alan sold me on coming back to the team, because I, you know, felt heard and listened to and wanted in the way that, you know, I can most affect the game. And that's how I look at our entire roster. So I'm excited about it, because I think Chris has a unique opportunity to mix pieces around, even though we have a short roster, to do it in a lot of different ways because of the versatility.
Well, for many reasons, I'm glad that you felt seen and heard, because if they had called, Alan didn't call. I talked to Alan, but I didn't. This is after that they had picked you up, but I would have been like, hey, whatever Ryan wants, give him what he wants, make him feel like he's the center of the universe, because we need to keep that guy in the goddamn team, right? Like, because and here's why. Because when you have Betancourt's good. Like, I've seen Betancourt do some just lawless, crazy, amazing stuff out there. He has the thing you need to play at this level, but took a little break. But he has the thing I can't really teach, so, or that no coach can really teach. And that's the dog, we call it the dog, or that thing. He has that. And then you have Austin, who's also playing on a team that just hasn't done that well. So that just eats away at the confidence over time. So when you combine this talent with the vets, I just think that, yeah, man, it's just going to be so good. And we'll see how good those guys can actually be. And that's cool, and I love Chris. Chris is a great Chris Jansen, your coach. He's a really smart guy. He's been around the game for a long time and really cares. So I think it's a good mix, and that I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys have, because, that core still has a big chip on their shoulder for elite greatness, and is really hungry for another win, and still can do all the things that are required to be elite.
Hungry for more than one, baby.
What's up?
Hungry for a lot more than one.
No, I'm just, yeah. I mean, well, you got to start with one, though.
Yeah, I know.
It starts with one.
But
yeah, no,
that's
I
not
think
filling me up.
the rest. No, that's what I want to hear out of you, dog. But the thing is that in that situation, I just think it's a kind of a really good moment for the guys that are coming on the team, combined with the dudes that have been on Heat, and it really, with that core, it does still, to me, feel like Heat a bit. Like I said, okay, cool. You still got this core that's been there for a long time. I'm really glad that that you and Ronnie and Mishka decide to stay on, because it's just going to hyperspeed the chances for that team to be relevant this year, and to make Sundays on a regular basis, and most importantly, to punch up on Sunday and have a chance to win tournaments. Because in practice and in those mental moments, that inner space between points, when everyone's kind of looking, that's never been there before, like, oh, how do I act in this moment? What am I supposed to say? You guys say those things. You have that it's almost like a I used to call it with Dynasty or teams that have won before. It's like it's a pliable charisma. You can't teach charisma, and you either got a spark in your soul that's a charismatic light that one of my favorite cliches / sayings is, a rising tide lifts all boats. You know, and so, and guys like that, they're not a dime a dozen. They are a rare breed. They're worth the money. They're worth the investment. They're worth having in your camp. And you want to bring human beings not only into your team or your business, but into your life in general, that raise the tide. And a lot of that comes through force of will, charisma, and you guys have that. So I think that's really cool. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do this year. And I think you guys got a real good chance, as long as those guys feed into what you're trying to give them. If you guys, if the vets perform and those guys feed in and absorb what you're trying to give them, and then they can ratchet up what we've already seen out of them and fulfill their potential, then yes, then we could see Heat crack into that top 5, win some tournaments this year.
Yeah.
And that makes me want to see that. I want to see that story play itself out.
Yeah. Every player on the team always has to take 100% concerted effort into everything they do, right? Whether it's learning or teaching or on the field, like, everyone has to be so involved with it, or else it falls apart. And that's what I'm seeing from it. So I am excited. And to mention Chewy's the dog, and I'm like, it's hard to describe that thing a lot and harder to teach. But like, he even has it off the field a little bit. We play one-on-ones to start our practices, and I was winning a good many of them, and he's like calling me out. And I'm like, I like that. Like, he didn't beat me, but like, at least you're calling me out. Like, I want that person who wants to step up and knock you down, So I think we have a whole bunch of players like that. And like you said, the proof's in the pudding, and nothing matters until, you make do of your promises, make good of them. But I'm excited for it, for the new beginning. I'm excited to have you and Todd both in the booth back together again. And that's nothing against Mike Jeffries, who I thought did a fantastic job, but you guys are similar in your approach to talking over coverage and such. So I am excited to see Todd back, the same way Todd was a great head coach. I always thought he'd the most perfect assistant coach, because he's born and bred to be a hype man, to make people excited, to bring groups closer together. And yes, that's an important skill set in a head coach, but head coaches have to do so much outside of that, and that takes so much time and energy, and that's just as important as the other thing.
Yeah, I got to go real quick, but this will be definitely. I want to speak on this real quick. Yeah, I thought Mike Jeffrey did an amazing dude. I respect Mike Jeffrey so much, and he's an incredibly intelligent individual. It's also interesting because, when you're up there and you're on air for 10 to 11 hours a day, it's a very creative endeavor because it's live and you have to kind of, and so we both have creative writing degrees. So I respected him on that without the paintball stuff. And I've known Mike for a long time. He actually came out and interned with Paintball Access way back in Phoenix, I believe in 2012, when he was still going to school. So known him for a long time. I felt he did a really good job. I felt he got a little bit of a bad shake because sometimes people would be like, oh, he's talking over Matty. It's like, bro, we're talking for 10, 11 hours, sometimes 12 hours a day. We did the math. We're speaking 300,000 to 400,000 words a day. And you're kind of writing a novel while you're up there. And at
least writing a chapter and then saying it a bunch.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I can't talk the whole time. I physically cannot do it, So I thought he did a great job. The one thing though is that I thought he did a great job. But he doesn't have that he's not a paintball legend, Hall of Fame in the books type guy because that wasn't the road he walked. And so I will give him all the credit in the world and all the respect in the world for jumping into that job, doing it the best he could. I thought he did a very competent job. Todd Martinez,
I would love to see you guys have two separate crews, like football broadcasts, so you guys could get some breaks during the day. And I know you got to leave here in a couple minutes, so I'll shoot this out and pass you real quick. But the issue there is because if I don't watch all the games, I can't keep the narrative in my head, and then I'm pulling out things. So because we'll take clips and put them into documentaries. So if I can't pull a memory from 2 days ago of a game that I missed because I was, had to take a rest, which I don't take. I've been taking a break ever, So it's like but all that gets cataloged in my head. So when that big climactic moment happens, I can try to put that into words so that we can then take that, put it in a documentary, and it lives forever. In my ideal world, you weren't just sitting up with your feet up. In my ideal world, you have two booths next to each other. Even if we were running split deck, you'd be showing one game while the other game was getting live streamed on, without all the cuts.
Yeah, but then I got to listen to what if your game's not on it, and then you're like, that's bullshit, dude. How's our game not on it? Whatever. I got to go.
All the time.
I got to go real quick, but I'm super happy that Todd Martinez is there. Todd Martinez, every time we've had a big show, because I've been doing this with everybody, I've had everyone, and not everyone, but anyone that's relevant in that seat. And Todd we just talked about charisma is unteachable. The ability to look into a camera or look into another person's eye and tell you a story with a fervor in your soul, concreted in with certain specific information that you brought from this relevant moment or this relevant statistic. I mean, these are things, that's why literally, and don't mistake my confidence or arrogance, but on the call sheet for every single sport that this is, and whether it's the Olympics or football or baseball, that role is just called the talent. It doesn't say announcer, it doesn't say broadcaster, it doesn't say voiceover, play-by-play, or color. It just says talent. That's what it says. Because that talent, so the talent that Todd Martinez has, bro, he's been my
It's the reason people still miss the short bus.
Exactly. He just has that, and I love him, and I've always, I was best man at his wedding. He's one of my oldest friends, and we gravitated towards each other because we have a very similar mindset and a similar way we love to look at the world. And so
different expressions of it.
Exactly. And very different respect. So it's like two bookends on a bookshelf, that holds the books together, holds the story together. You got one side over here, the left and the right. It's crucial. So I'm really happy he's back. And obviously he was coaching for years, so we never could really get him before. Anyway, longer story there, but man, I'm so happy that Todd's back.
Excited.
And it's going to be super fun and hopefully entertaining for everybody out there. Cause Todd's a gem and he's a rock star at what he does. So it's going to be a good 2026. And I couldn't be happier to have him there. Yeah. I mean, even when we did an ESPN show, it was at Huntington Beach, and they're like, we need Matty, you give me who's the best dude? Who's the other guy? I'm like, Todd Martinez. And it was like, we did, the college shows. I'm like, who is it? I'm like, Todd Martinez, man. Everyone's been asking me this for 15 years. It's Todd. Todd's the guy. So I'm really stoked that he's there.
Well,
And
thank you so
that-
much for coming on. Yeah. And, maybe once the fresh one, is sleeping better later on in the year, we can have you on just for, an afternoon and get it deep into the woods and some of these
I
spots.
do.
I'd love to have you back.
Super down. Doesn't even have to be deeper in the year. We just got to carve out the schedule. So it's like,
yeah,
all the regular
tough.
life stuff is done.
Yeah.
And I can just kind of just sit here for as long as we want. And we can go down whatever rabbit hole you guys want to go down.
100%. I do have something to stay on for a split second. If you don't mind, I have something short to tell you real quick afterwards.
Okay, cool. I will do that.
All right. See you later.
Well, the whiskey's low and the story's all done, but we sure had ourselves some fun. From tall tales told to the last good pun, you've been rolling with the rowdy ones. Thanks for listening, y'all.